Hello, and welcome to Gunnar Weiskamp's Web Development Lesson 2, installing Angular and our first app. That's what we're going to discuss here today. I'm using Visual Studio 2013 Community Edition. It's free to download. I'm a Microsoft boy. We'll be looking at the different ways to install Angular and creating our first simple app around that. So that's it today. Hopefully nice and quick. So if we were to fire up Visual Studio here, let's make it nice and big. So we go File, New Project. Slowly coming up. Then we click on ASP.NET Web Application. For tutorials, try to take note of the framework that the person is using. Let's give this a quick name. My first app best. Let's call it my first best app ever. That sounds cool. Yeah, so here we go. Press the magical enter button. So Visual Studio is going off and doing its thing. We're just going to select empty, keep it nice and clean. None of this MVC stuff or web form stuff. That's for much later on. Press OK. Cancel on that if that comes up for you. So now Visual Studio is doing its magical stuff. Yeah, so once this comes up, the first way we're going to look at to install Angular is by going to Angular itself. So here it's coming up. You can see on the right part of the screen here, nice, clean, easy solution. You've just got your properties, your references, and a web config file. Before we do anything, I think let's first make this interface have everything that we need. So it's going to need a folder to hold a script. So let's go and add a new folder, call it scripts. So in here we will put our Angular script. Right, that's going good. We will need a HTML page. Just going to not name it for the sake of speed. It's coming up. So there we are, there's our HTML page. In this script we will need our own little JavaScript file where we're going to write our own magical Angular code. And we'll call this my app script. Okay. Alright. So our structure here is now created. Now let's go and grab the Angular. So if we, let's go to Angular. Here we are. Let's make it nice and big. Go to Angular. .org. So now here, obviously it's pretty in front of us, the download Angular.js. We get a pop-up. Let me just get rid of this here. Do that. One important thing here that I want to point out is this previous versions of Angular. We can click in there and get, as it states, if it comes up. Come on, Angular. In here we can go and get previous versions of Angular. I just wanted to point this out because this is important. If you're dealing with older Angular code, you've seen something on the web, you want to use it, play around with it, make sure you get the correct version of Angular for it. So in here you can do that. We won't use this right now, I just wanted to point that out. So let's go back. Sorry for the speed of my machine, it's not as fast as lightning. Unfortunately, but we're getting there. Spinning around, and yeah, okay. Now we're going to click on this groover here again. We're just going to, yeah, and now download it. Come on, machine. Right, so now we are downloading it. Oh, keep show folder. So you can already see I've already done this before. So now let's copy this little guy here into our project. So we navigate to the project that we created. So hopefully you've kept an eye on where you created your project. You copy that. For this, we'll be copying it into the JavaScript folder that we created. So now it's there, which is cool. Now if we go back to Visual Studio, to my first best app ever, you'll see it hasn't come up. Let's do this little magic here, show hidden things. I'm hoping include in project. So now we have included this Angular script in our project. So now, just like any JavaScript process, if you've had experience in JavaScript, you need to reference these JavaScript files in your HTML. So this guy has to come on top. Positioning is key, and this guy comes up underneath. So this is the mother. This always comes before your script, because your script will reference certain key elements out of the top script here. So that's positioning is really important, and for those new to JavaScript or this sort of technique or technology, that's an important thing to mention. So now we're going to fill out our little JavaScript file here. I'm going to try to speed that up by grabbing some code that I have written before. So let's just so in here we've put some Angular code, our first bit of Angular code, which you can type out if you want. Two key things here. Every Angular process needs a module to function. Most of the time it'll also need a controller. These are two core components of every Angular app, a module and a controller. More on controllers later in a way. A controller always needs a name. That can be anything. You can name it my first ever controller, name controller, employee controller, whatever suits the circumstance. And in here, as I sort of explained before, you inject certain services also into a controller that you might want to use, which I explained in my first tutorial. So now we've got our Angular code here. We're going to keep this really simple. We're just going to put an alert in, and in the time-honored fashion, yes, a lot of programmers would have seen this before, and why break with tradition, I guess. Hello world. That's always a good thing. So we've got our Angular code ready there, really simple. We just want to see this alert come up and we know we're communicating with Angular. In here we have to do a couple of things to make that happen. This ng tag, if you see an ng tag, it's an Angular tag, and there are many of them. In this case, every Angular code needs an ng app. That's a core piece of Angular process object that every HTML page needs to run. In here you have to associate it with the JavaScript that file that you created. You have to associate this with the module here, which is this one. These need to be the same naming, the same case, everything. You can call it again whatever you want. You can call this my employee page, say if you were doing something with employees, or my record collection, my movie collection. But this, if this is called my movie collection, this here has to be called my movie collection. They have to be related. So that's a key thing, the ng app. Now with the controller, controllers can be placed anywhere. I'm sort of diverging on this lesson, but I'll just cover this quickly as well. We'll go a little bit into more depth about controllers later on. But while we're here, we might as well, while we're using the code as well, we might as well talk a little bit about it. Let's bring in this controller guy. There he is, and this controller needs to be associated with a controller in here. So this name here has to be the same as here. And again, you can call this whatever you want. So now we've got a controller here. This piece of code will only be associated with whatever is going to happen in here. You will not be able to use Angular in here, only in this area here. But I am digressing a little bit, and I don't want to digress too much on that. So that is fine there. Now, to explain this a little bit more fully, if you want that other div to work with Angular, there's, well, a number of things you could do. Let's get rid of that, but for now, say call this one my controller 2. And as you can probably guess, we have to put a controller in here, and my controller 2. So now this controller is associated with this div. But I am digressing a bit. Now we're going to run it, and we should, fingers crossed, see the alert come up. Yeah, so after this page builds, we'll see the alert come up, and then we've covered the first way of entwining or getting Angular to work, downloading it, and making it work with your app. So after this after the web page comes up, I'll show you the second way. Come on, machine. But yeah, so all these processes are important. The other way, already leading to the subject, if you've heard of NuGet packages, it's been around for some time now, the technology, we'll be installing it by that process, which is pretty straightforward as well. Come on. Whoa. Yeah. Whoa. Didn't want you. Oh, here we go. Yay. Our HTML page is coming up. And slowly, slowly, slowly. And we can see hello world. There you go. It worked. Yay. Dead simple stuff, but we now have Angular code communicating, which is what we want. So let's get rid of that. And let's stop this. Right. So now I'm going to delete this. Yes, I do want to permanently delete it, please. Yeah, apologies for the speed of my machine. So now the second way of installing Angular is by this manage NuGet packages process. If you're not new, if you've used Visual Studio before, you'll probably know how this works. So online, we can put in here to help us, and it should go away and find the Angular code. Retrieving information. There it is. So you'll see a few different Angular things come up. There are a number of other Angular scripts which do certain other things like Angular routes, but we'll cover that later on. We just want this guy here, AngularJS. You press install. It's doing its magic, and it should install it on the scripts folder here. It should look for that and install it there. Doing its magic. One green bar, couple more green bars. Come on, we're getting there. But yeah, so this is more or less going to Angular, downloading it, putting it on your machine. It's doing the same sort of process. And there we can see the scripts folder being filled with lots of stuff. And you might be thinking, oh my god, look at all that code. So let's, to be clear, let's get rid of our tag there in our HTML page. I will get rid of that. Now let's reference the Angular min from the NuGet package that was done and put it back here. You might see Angular here and Angular min. The difference between Angular, this one, and Angular min, this is minified, while, so let's open it up quickly. Whoa, exactly minified. There are no white spaces. Certain magic is done to that to make this when you release this code, it'll function quicker. This is the readable version. So if you need to debug it, and well, I would never want to debug this amount of code, you can look into here and read it easier. That's the difference between the Angular and the Angular min files, just briefly. But okay, so now we should be able to run it again. It's slowly doing its magic. Sorry for the hold up here, but yeah, you can see all these Angular files that have been added by the NuGet packager, and a number of those do obviously different things. You can add them to do different processes, like the Angular route here, that is used to route, give you the ability to route to different pages using Angular. It's sort of its own concept in Angular in a way. Right, so now, coming up, oh here we go, it's coming up, nearly there. We haven't changed our JavaScript file. It should just function as it did before. Oh, sorry. We're creating a new window, obviously. So the old JavaScript file that we had, our Angular code, and that should work with this new Angular code. Hello world, there we go. Did the same thing. So all is good with the world. This is our first hello world. It's not my first hello world example, but for some of you it might be. So there we are. Yeah, so that was lesson 2, installing Angular, the 2 different ways. Our first app, we looked a little bit at the controller there. The third lesson, I'll be talking about certain concepts of Angular and trying to explain a little bit more about the controller, because I can imagine this might be a bit confusing. So thanks for watching. Thanks for your patience. I hope you have a good night, and feel free to visit my website there, gunnerweiskamp.com. Thank you.